have been involved in the BIM projects, and what is the percentage of projects which you have worked in terms of digitalization, not only in BIM but overall? So with BIM or without BIM? So just your views on that.
So we got exposed to building information modeling in a seminar in 2010, as late as that. It happened in Singapore Green Building Conference, and where people explained about this so-called forthcoming thing which will show the buildings in 3D as an engineering tool, not for the architects. It shows colorful graphics. So from there we were waiting for the right opportunity. So when we started constructing our 2.3 million square feet project in Bangalore, which is near Coxtown, ITC office, there at the stage of design, when the schematic design was over, we got the help of a BIM implementer, and that company from West Bengal could convert our 2D documents. That was, I think, in 2013. About 2013 or so. 2013 or so. We converted the documents that were available at that time, schematic design, into 3D and coordinated structure, architecture, services, etc. for this 12-story plus 4 basement building. And thankfully, because of that early intervention, the entire basement, if you know of a commercial building, basements are quite complicated with utilities. We had literally no clash at the time of construction. And so that was our beginning of the journey and testing. Then we did a data center where the MEP services are very complicated. Usually in a data center, and our data center is only 4.5 meter high. Usually data centers are 5 meter plus floor to floor. So in that, to coordinate networking and everything with a raised floor of 600, we used BIM, and that also happened without any trouble because of all this coordination beforehand. Then we got convinced that this makes sense. So from, I think, last year onwards, all our projects are on BIM, which has got two parts. One is the building information, what we call BIM documents or BIM docs, which is basically for sharing. That is 100% projects are there, and all the new projects that we have are also using Revit tools for digital integration among the designers. And now we are doing some piloting for a thing called, we are predominantly basing ourselves on Autodesk platform because of our more familiarity with that. So now they have got something called Autodesk Construction Cloud, and with that we are using Autodesk Build, which is basically all the site construction management, all protocols, RFIs, etc. to be handled through that. We are also planning, we have not yet done, to do pilot for one of our projects for AR integration, and as well as something like camera. And with BIM, you can take a daily tour of the site using a camera, and you can see the progress. And somebody at office at night or next day morning can see the progress with respect to the model, so that you have to deploy less people at site. So these 2 years have, and also we are doing up to 4D at present, which is integration of schedule, and that is a very new journey. Only a few months back we have integrated 2 projects into 4D. So, and we are using, because of this remote working, things like using smart glasses to see what is happening at site, using a Teams or a Zoom meeting. So wherever we can, and it seems like it will add value, we are using that wherever. So being a company, it's like there has to be some financial piece as well to it. So of course we do a little cases for proof of concept, POC, and then we scale it up depending upon the economic value of that particular tool. So we are using it quite a lot, not to the extent that we'd like to use, because ecosystem has to be built for that. Ecosystem has to be quite ready for that. But we have been pushing the cause for quite a long time. I'm glad to see that even the contractors, we are doing about 3 lakh square feet interior at present, and during the pre-qualification criteria of the contractors were their awareness about this. And we could get 5 people in Bangalore who were totally conversant with you. So that's a very good situation, I think, that seeing that this kind of.
Thanks for that. And a follow-up question to Vishal might be like, so return on investment, I think that is the most discussed but least documented subject in terms of BIM adoption, at least in India, what we see. So what are your views on that, and how do you suggest implementing at project level objectives, return on investment basically?
Right, so this is an interesting question that we are still talking about return on investment on BIM. I think this is now kind of taken as given in any project, right? In the Western world, I believe to a great extent we are doing that in India as well, right? So most projects at least will be using an ArchiCAD or a Revit, right? So you're already into BIM. So BIM is not binary, right? So it's not that you are using it or not using it. The question on return on investment is what is the right amount of usage to get the return, right? So I think so return on investment, essentially, I absolutely understand it's important. But again, you have to break it down at what level you're looking at, right? You can have in a project from a client's perspective, the client will look at return on investment on the project specific goals. Whereas as an organization, you are not looking at return on investment in a single project because there's always a cost. There's always a cost on learning and adopting tools. Now one has to look at is what is the loss you are having by not adopting BIM. I think that's the other way to look at return on investment, right? Because you will be short-sighted only to look at the near future saying that we are looking for return on investment. We have to have a vision and see whether the initial cost in adoption, the learnings, I'm sure you as an organization have made mistakes and learned. We as researchers have made mistakes and learned, right? But that learning also has that benefit, which is not counted in your ROI, which is if you only look at it from a financial perspective, right? So I think it's not a question now whether we should look at ROI from the perspective of a project or something else, and it's not a question of whether or not to use BIM. It's a question of what is the right strategy for BIM in a particular project, and that is where your frameworks and your models of and that's where your project management skills come in, and you, I believe, function as a digital management process as well, right? So this is where your frameworks come in, where somebody has some experience and they decide on what is the right amount of BIM usage, so that you manage your learning process at the same time you ensure that each project gets the return that it deserves. So I do not think that's a question to be asked; it's a question to be managed.
So, if you allow me, I'll just substantiate what you said with a simple case study. Since we have matured a little bit on BIM, my colleague Raghu Anaya is sitting here. He did an exercise on one particular project, seeing the license cost, etc., and what is the digital cost involved, and what is the benefit to cost ratio. I think about 3 clashes that we saved, that amounted to about 2.5 times return. So that tells the story. We did not have to go any further because we have got a lot of CAs in our organization. So it's important.
So now I think another question is like, okay, now we already have the case studies, all those things. So since so you get involved in projects very early stages. So what are the questions which client ask when they are actually specifying the BIM? So in the project level, so how do you explain the benefits of BIM to clients at a very early stage?
Yeah, of course. The very initial stage, of course, one is about the what level of the component, which the cost of this particular one, which is going to be and overall being competent in the sense, whether it's having the competent persons of people or organizations available in your projects that they can manage. But of course, Vishal said about now the kind of awareness, or it's become a kind of mandatory, or there's no question of whether to go or not, but to what level we go. Whether start with only the initial stage of the block or concepts, or okay, wait for some time, then understand, then we'll go ahead. So that I could see that large projects of campus or kind of the million square feet over and above, not only the core edition, even the office fit outside. I think there's a good amount of clients are very keen, and it's it's a mandatory kind of thing to go ahead.
So another question is, Tapan, so do you see there is a growing demand for building the gap between models and site data? So basically what we told now and what discussions you had. So bringing back the site data to model, or bringing model to the site. So what do you see that, is there a demand, or are there any projects which you are looking at it?
So I'll share our experience. As I said, this 2.3 million square feet building that we modeled, and we completed the project in 2018. Right, the model was there. We handed over the model to our facilities team. So now there is an augmentation happening on the terrace of the building. we are having building maintenance units. We could use that model to see what are the clashes, because in the meanwhile, some people have done the fit out. We have added some air conditioning units which are there on the roof terrace and all that. So there were clashes found, and that could be resolved before they could do any actual installation of the rail. So building information model, once you do, and if your facilities team is also conversant and trained, that actually is a perpetual thing. So somebody said that it has to be a cloud-based universal thing, which at any point of time you can go. At that time when we had done, it was not cloud-based, it was more resident software that was there. But now we can actually put that model in cloud and use it for collaboration, for augmentation. So there is a good use. Now whether there is demand in the market, as I understand, we are partnering with some BIM service providers. So one typical sector that you will never think will use such a digital thing is residential developers. But in Calcutta, which is a very cost-wise kingly place, we were very pleasantly surprised to learn that BIM takeoff or quantity takeoff and monitoring of steel and cement and such quantities is very actively being used, and this particular service provider is giving a lot of support in that sector. So there is value, but I think as Indians we will judge that value and we will use the things as that is best suitable. So you will find very, very strange and very unique applications in areas which we never thought about, like digital payment. India is one of the primate, I think, leading countries in the world. Secure digital payment, I'll add to that.
Static data, as you also referred to, right? So you'll have your drawings, BIM models. So you need to have an as planned versus as is situation at any point in time, where you have an idea of what you expect and what is the reality. So in order to do that, whether it is in design phase or whether it is in construction phase or whether it's in operations phase, you need to have both. So you need to have the digital data in the format, because that's the right format to make it faster, right? Because you want runtime information. Runtime information has to be compared to your actual information, which has been the legacy information. So that is what we are looking at the moment. Is what we are trying to do is to ensure that we have a platform or we have a mechanism where you have different data sources. Data is collected and then we are able to compare. So this is where analytics and other things also comes in. But it's not enough to just do the analysis, right? Then you have to also report back and you have to share that information so that the right information reaches the right person so that the action can be taken at the right time. And as I said, part of that again is in which format we present it, right? And the best is of course digital format. That's the way we are able to communicate faster these days, right? So this is where the entire thing comes in, and BIM becomes, and digital twin, all of this becomes very central part of it, because a large part of your information is coming through this. BIM becomes the aggregator in some form, right? So that's the sort of anchor around which you anchor all the information. So that becomes the host, and that becomes the central database along which you plug in all the information to the relevant objects. And the more we get better at it, the more automated the process would be. Having said that, you again need to simplify the final interface, right? Because not everyone is comfortable or going to be use a BIM model at any point in time. So I might as well just have my WhatsApp with me. But can my BIM model communicate to WhatsApp, right? Whatever is message comes. We have done that in some research projects where you could sort of send a message through Twitter and it updates your BIM model. For example, you go to a site and you say that the color of the wall has changed. So somebody sends some Twitter message and it changes the color in your model, right? So that is doable because it's a question of an API. The question is at what level of detail you're working with, right? And the same vice versa. Something happens in the model and you get a message notified on your WhatsApp saying that, okay, something has happened, you need to follow it up. So we have to look at this last mile problem. I think that's the problem that needs to be addressed at the moment. And situation awareness is where you would like to go to the ground level, the grassroots level, where everyone is able to participate in the process.
Clear. So, and the question, Velan, is so now when we are talking about BIM and tidying, so people think the moment the model is done, so you get automatic quantification. So how, what is your experience in terms of that? And is all models which are built are ready for quantification?
I think still there is a lot of development and the kind of interfaces really required. So when we started the first of building the steel building, the full entire project is a steel building, full fledged. There is a substantial kind of the conflict and the clash reductions all done. And when we started working on the quantum part, the BOQ or the trade wise, it's a kind of two things. And one is what the model generate and what the industry accepts. For example, the contractor, he knows some kind of norms. So if we bring in the kind of information what the model generates, probably he may not be able to price it at all. We need to convert in terms of what the contractor understands. For example, a country like Singapore, I recall that in 1996 or close to the first IT build projects, the BOK looked like all single line. Probably those on the construction industry, they know that. So it's only one line. Probably they will read the drawing, the specification, technical specification, then they will price it in the one line. Whereas here we'll write pages of the specification, particularly the waterproofing itself go for 3-4 pages. I'm just saying that. So the conversion is very important today. Otherwise, the contractor, whether to price it here or he may not be able to understand what level of what is need to be priced. So this definitely needs a kind of conversion or interfacing between the supplier or the contractor to the designer. So I feel there's a substantial improvement has been done. That's why I said that when we are preparing the kind of PQ, I mean the bill of quantities, like your coding comes in a very important one, which links back to the model in here. So that's still a lot of work is to be done in phase. So this, if it's both are interconnected, I'm sure a lot of repeat work or kind of robotic work what we are doing at the moment.
Thank you. I think Tapan, you have answered most of my questions in first question itself. So, and maybe in the interest of time, so we will wrap this discussion table and then we'll go to the next part of the program. Thank you.